We all love to talk about what is a great finale, what is a bad finale, and we can all list the bad finales. But this one still rules. I mean, people still talk about it, and they make, do parodies of it. So can we talk about that, how it all came together?
All right, here is the, JFK once said, victory has 1,000 fathers and defeat is an orphan. Well, this is the true story of how the show ended. It was in the sixth year of the show. My wife and I, Jenny and I, were going to a party in Beverly Hills, and we were waiting to get our pictures taken. And I said to Jenny, I said, I think this is going to be the last year of Newhart. I said, because she knew Monday night at 9 o'clock wasn't a hit time slot. Newhart made 9 o'clock a hit time slot. But they would put in new shows. They'd put in Murphy Brown, or they'd put in Cagney and Lacey, or one of those, and move us to 8:30 or move us to 9:30. And it became kind of, you try to figure out where Bob is tonight, And so Suzanne Pichette was at this party, and Jenny said, I think I have the ending. You should wake up in bed with Suzanne and explain to her this dream that you had, that about, you had a maid who was an heiress. Why would an heiress want to work at the inn? You have Larry, Daryl, and Daryl, who I thought were directly from Deliverance here in Vermont. So there were a number of inexplicable things about the show. So we did that. I gave it to the writers, and they wrote the story, a wonderful story of the last episode, and with the end, of course, being where what happened was the crew didn't even know. You had found out.
Oh, you told me, yeah.
Yeah, and so we told the crew, oh, we've added a scene, and just when camera A, you just shoot this way, you shoot that way, B, C, and just keep shooting, whatever happens. So they have a thing called a floater, which blocks the next scene, so that the audience concentrates on the scene that they're watching, and they're not distracted. So they pulled the floater away and revealed the bedroom set from the Bob Newhart show. And the audience began to applaud. They were applauding the bedroom set. An inanimate object. They were applauding this. And they didn't know Susie was in bed or I was in bed. And I always thought of it as, to me it was a Monty Python kind of moment, that we knew the audience, they knew us, and it was kind of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, and that's the way they took it. I heard you'd hear people, yeah, and that's how that came about. My wife came up with the idea for it. People have asked me, was she compensated? And she was generously compensated for that idea.
Jenny, did you get a huge diamond?
She's got
really?
Great jewelry.
Oh, good. How many takes did that take to do that?
Boy, I don't.
Did you get it the first take?
Pretty much the first take, yeah. We had Susie was hidden 2 sound stages over, and brought in at the last minute. No one knew she was there. And the audience, they went crazy. They went
Yeah, and
crazy.
I really didn't expect them to react to the set. I thought it would be when she popped up.
Yeah.
I was so surprised, and I heard this murmur and murmur and murmur.
They recognized it.
Yeah.
And of course, that great voice of Susie's which, by the way, I never would do another series where the wife's voice was deeper than mine.
How did you handle that with Mary? Did you explain to Mary what you were doing? And
Yeah, Mary, I think, at first she wasn't crazy about the idea. She didn't know if that would hurt the concept that people had devoted their nights, their Monday nights watching the show, and turns out it's a dream. But then she went along with it, and of course it's enjoyed that response that they still talk about it.
yeah. Okay, one more, I'll let you go. What's it been like living with that legacy of the finale? Because you obviously did 8 seasons before that, but when people think of the show, they go right to that finale.
Right.
What's that? Is that?
I think that's why I don't remember so many episodes, because normally people would be saying, I loved this episode or that episode and want to talk about it. But it's always about the finale, so you kind of forget all those other episodes. But it will be now streaming on Hulu, so we'll catch up.
Also, I hate, those are the 2 words, Renee, I hate mild-mannered and deadpanned. I've lived my whole life with those 2.
I won't use that.
Thank you.
Okay, all right.
It's too late.
I know, it's too late. All right, so before we get into the show, I just have to ask you, how did you manage to not once, but twice get shows named after you?
I insisted on it. No, there was a very good reason with the Bob Newhart show and Newhart. I almost ran out of names, and then I did a year with George and Leo, because my first name is George Robert Newhart, and Bob. I did a series Bob. So I'd been asked to come back for other pilots, but I'd run out of first names. So.
All right, I don't know if you recall how Newhart came about. I certainly didn't. So can you explain where you got the idea for this show?
Well, I left in, the first show was 72 to 78. I left in 78, but I knew I was coming back to television, because I love television. It's an incredible medium. Its impact is incredible. So I knew I was coming back to. So my wife and I was doing stand-up in Seattle, Washington, at the Paramount Theater. And I was noticing, in the back of my mind, I was trying to think of, okay, what are you going to do for the next show? And I saw a similarity between the Bob Newhart show as a psychologist, and it was a small Hilton hotel. And as we had to treat the patients when I was a psychologist, no matter what they said, which really was the body of the show, what they said. I remember Mr. Carlin, we did one show, Mr. Carlin, I said, how was your weekend? He said, I was possessed by the devil last Thursday. So being a psychologist, would you want to go with that, Mr. Carlin? So I realized how similar the patients were to guests at a hotel, because no matter how strange they were, you had to curry to them. And then the people, the staff of the hotel, was kind of, that would be Howard Borden and Susie. That's the home life. And so I talked to Barry Kemp. I got together with Barry Kemp, who was just coming off Taxi or Cheers, I forget which one it was. And so I gave him the idea for this, a small hotel. And I didn't make it Seattle, because once you've done 12 rain jokes, you're pretty much run out of...
Good call.
You've run out of stories. So he suggested maybe doing the show in Vermont. And I said, well, that sounds like a great idea because we could avail of ourselves of a lot of the what is peculiar to the Northeast, like town meetings that they would have, and also one episode we devoted to a dead witch's body who was buried at the inn. And so that was kind of the impetus for the show.
All right, now one of the great tools in your chest is your chest. Is your ability to keep a straight face.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise known as the deadpan. Yeah. Where did that come from?
Well, you have to do it, and it was very close. We did several shows where, right up until taping, I was losing it. I still was. The several shows I can think of. We were going to show one tonight. I was doing Peter Scolari had talked me into doing a Vermont Today show, and I wanted it to be a very intellectual show. I wanted to interview the president of the University of Vermont, but unfortunately he fell out, and so the show was on the theme of the world's smallest horse.
I'm hoping you remember that day on set. How were all those animals? Because they looked pretty dang good in that scene. Did they all behave?
Well, we cut a few scenes out.
You were laughing through that too.
Yeah, it's great writing, and it was fun, Peter, and Julia, and it was a fun show. I always look forward. We did another show on a retired Marine Lieutenant Colonel went wrote a book called Up the Amazon. And I was talking to him, and he was explaining how they went to the deepest parts of the Amazon and discovered a herd of dinosaurs. And I could barely get through that one, So,
All right, let's talk about Mary Fran.
Okay.
First of all, what would she like to work with? What would she say about playing your wife, and what would you say about her playing your husband?
Well, of course, Mary and Tom Poston are not with us anymore, unfortunately. But I told Mary when we were getting ready to do the first show that she had the toughest job on television because she had to follow Suzanne Plachette, and it was a tough job. Susie and I there was a chemistry but she did it.